Hi, and welcome to Relationship Talk with Laura. It's good to be with you again this week. I sure hope that all the new things that you are learning from this program, you are able to adapt them into your life, and that your communication skills are improving and you're getting better and better with how you communicate with your spouse, your significant other in your life, and your loved ones. Today we are going to talk about two communication traps that are very common with people. They are called stonewalling and controlling. They are actually close cousins because stonewalling is really a big form of controlling behavior. Why? Because when a person refuses to talk about an issue, they're controlling keeping things status quo. If they don't talk about it, you can't do anything. You can't change the status quo. Let's start out with a story, which is our tradition. This story is about Michaela and Derek. They lived in a little 1940s World War II bungalow. Back then, homes were about 1,200 square feet, that is the traditional World War II house, and it had a living room, a modest kitchen, little eating area, 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom. Well, Michaela and Derek, they were so happy that they could afford the house. After all, they were living the American dream, and they had 2 little small children. They were as happy as could be. Then one day, Michaela found out that she was unexpectedly pregnant. It was what you call an unplanned pregnancy. When she spoke to Derek about it, at first they were just so shocked, but their horror and shock soon turned into happiness and excitement about welcoming in another little spirit into their home. Now, Michaela, she was thinking of the future. She thought to herself, oh, I don't want to bring a baby into our little 2-bedroom house. I would like to have a 3rd bedroom, even a 4th bedroom, but at least a 3rd bedroom where we could have a nursery. I certainly don't want the baby in our room at night, and I don't want the baby in our 2 children's room because the baby would wake them up in the middle of the night for when I need to feed the baby. So she talked to Derek. She said, Derek, honey, don't you think it's time that we look for another house? To which he did the classic communication trap, stonewalling. No, and I don't want to talk about it. And he turned on his heels and he walked into the bedroom. Michaela followed him in. That made him madder. He did not want to talk about it. So the only way that he could control her and get out of talking to her about it was to leave the house, get in his car, and drive away, which is what he did. And unfortunately, he didn't talk to her for 2 hours, even though she texted him, called him, left messages on the cell phone. He would not reply. Classic stonewalling. So after going through this for a couple of months, Michaela took things into her own hands, and she thought, I've got to do something about this. So she researched the market. She found out that their house had increased in value $50,000. And along the way, they also had built up equity of about $50,000. So they were in good shape to get another loan on a house and to trade up to a 3-bedroom house at least. So she started looking at houses online, and she found a couple that fit the bill right in their neighborhood that were actually less money than their own little house. She contacted a real estate agent, had the agent officially come over and appraise their house, and she was delighted with her findings. She put everything down on the computer, neatly written out. Now, her husband was an accountant, very detail-oriented, so she made sure she had all the details on paper. Then one day, after she had fed him his favorite meal, she took the piece of paper and presented it in front of him and said, honey, I'd really like to talk and discuss about buying a house with 3 bedrooms in it for when the baby arrives. To which, you're right, He took that piece of paper, he didn't even look at it, he ripped it up, crumpled it up, and then tossed it on the floor. Now you're probably saying to yourself, how rude! How could he do that to her? Yes, stonewalling is a form of rudeness, to be sure, but more importantly, a form of ultimate control. What could she do? That was the problem. All right, so now you get what stonewalling is. Let me tell you another stonewalling story that is similar, but just a little bit different, and then we'll go to our professional actors. This story is about a couple that actually came to me for counsel and advice. Their names, Sid and Carrie, I will call them. Not their real names, of course, protecting their identity. Sid and Carrie came to me because they had a problem. So when they sat down on the couch in front of me in my little office, I asked them, what's the problem? What could I help them with? And Sid right away said, well, we have this problem. You see, we have a little child who's 8 months old, and that's not the problem. And he was thrilled to talk about his little 8-month-old boy. And of course, Carrie chimed in too. He happened to be very precocious, and he already could say mommy and daddy in a few words, and they were just so excited about him. And he was already crawling and pulling himself up, holding onto a chair or a couch. He could stand up. He couldn't walk yet, but he could stand up. So what's the issue, you ask? Well, Sid said, I'm just concerned. One day I said to my wife, I think we ought to buy a playpen. And she wouldn't hear of it. She just went like this to me, shh, 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 and walked away. And any time I ever tried to bring it up, she'd say, the matter's closed, I don't want to talk about it. Now what is interesting is when he was talking, guess what Carrie was doing? She was interrupting and saying, oh, I can't believe that he's saying that. Oh, that's a lie. That is not true. I can't stand here. I can't stand here and listen to this. And so she got up, she left the office. You might think, why don't you go after her? No. I didn't go after her because that's what she wanted me to do so that she could control me and, better yet, manipulate me. So I just talked to her husband and found out more details. What he wanted to do was get a playpen so that when Carrie was on the phone during the day, if she was sewing, if she was cleaning the house, if she was doing anything that required her concentration, and she couldn't keep an eye on their little guy, who was now very busy getting into everything, that she could just put him in the playpen for an hour so that she could get things done and not have to worry about what he was up to. Sounds like a pretty good idea. Well, by this time now, 15 minutes had gone by, and Carrie returned and she sat down. And I looked at her and I said, Carrie, what are you afraid of? That was the magic answer, or question I should say. She burst into tears. I was amazed. I handed her some Kleenex and she said, I don't want my child in a playpen. Well, tell me about it, Carrie. What's going on? I'm afraid that if I put him in a playpen, it will be like the book said. What book was that? Well, it was a book called How to Raise an Intelligent Child. Oh, tell me about it. Well, the book said that if you put your child in a playpen, you will lower your child's IQ because they won't be able to explore. They won't be free to learn and grow. You will be setting limits on them. Oh, I said, did they by any chance talk about how many hours a day you would have to keep the baby in a playpen in order to lower their IQ? I don't know. I guess it would be like putting the baby in the playpen all day, where you put toys in the playpen for the baby. Oh, I see. Okay. Derek, or rather Sid, what did you have in mind about the playpen? Oh, honey, I wouldn't put our baby in the playpen for 8 hours a day. That would be dreadful. I only meant that you could have it as an alternative, 1 hour a day, so you could get things done and not worry about what the baby was doing. Oh, is that all? I thought you wanted the baby in the playpen 8 hours a day. Oh, sweetheart, no, I never wanted you to do that. But Carrie was still concerned about it. I still am concerned, Sid. I just want our baby to have the best possible life and to be as smart as can be and to give our baby the best opportunities. All of a sudden, a light bulb went on in Sid's brain, and he said, well, come to think of it, my aunt, who lives a couple of blocks away, remember, she's a retired school teacher now, and she said she would love to babysit our little guy anytime you wanted it for up to 2 hours a day. She thought that would be fun for her and it would give you a little break. What do you think, sweetheart? Let's not get a playpen, but if you need to be doing things while you're concentrating, how about taking her to Aunt Susie's house? Carrie had a broad smile spread across her face. She was so happy. And guess what? Problem solved. Let's now go to our professional actors, Rika Miller and Spencer Mickelson, and watch them act out a stonewalling situation.
Can we please talk about what happened last night?
What?
Listen, I'm sorry, number one, and I didn't mean to let any sort of personal information come out in front of our friends. It was just conversation.
It's fine.
Listen, I know it's not fine. Will you just say something?
I don't have anything to say to you right now.
Well,
No, just forget about it. Let it go.
Isn't it fun to watch the actors enact a stonewalling situation? You'll notice that Rika, she doesn't look at her husband. That's a stonewalling technique. She doesn't even want to look at his face. She is giving body language that she doesn't want to have anything to do with what he's talking about. Now he is expressing a concern, but she won't have anything to do with it. Her treasured apartment building, that was an inheritance that she received from her parents. It means so much to her that she doesn't even want to talk about it. Now you'll notice that the operative word here is fear. Stonewallers always fear something. Now let's go to our actors doing it the right way.
can we please talk about last night? Listen, I'm sorry I let out personal information in front of our friends. I mean, I just get excited about trying to have a kid, and I'm sorry if that's too personal for you.
I just feel like because I haven't gotten pregnant and we've been trying a year, something's wrong with me. And I feel like when you talk about it, the whole world knows something's wrong with her.
Honey, I'm sorry. I will do everything that I can to not talk about that in front of other people again, because I know you're sensitive about it.
Well, let's talk about a way that it's okay to mention in front of other people. I'm excited about it too. Just let's talk about how much to share.
Okay. And thank you for talking about it at all. I know it's not the easiest topic to talk about. I love you.
I love you too.
You'll notice right away you see body language that indicates that they are open to each other. Rika turns and looks at Spencer. They hold each other's hands. He listens to her experience and her feelings about this apartment building, how important it is to her. He doesn't tell her she has to sell it this time. He just wants to explore the possibility of what can they do to prevent going bankrupt. He wants to make sure that they are financially solvent. This time Rika is open to it, and so they agree that they are going to explore possibilities together of how they can solve the problem. A great way to solve it. Let's bring up the graphic of Stonewaller's Listen Up. Stonewallers always have to ask themselves this question, and some of you in the audience today are Stonewallers. What are you afraid of? Number 1, are you afraid of loss of control? Number 2, are you afraid that your mate will be unreasonable? Sometimes that's the case, and so Stonewallers learn to just not talk about it because they don't want to be forced to do anything that their mate would force them to do. Number 3, Stonewallers are afraid that they won't be understood and heard. And 4th, Stonewallers are afraid that they can't express themselves as well as their mate. This is so often the case when one is more verbal than the other. Now let's look at how can we handle a Stonewaller. Bring up the graphic, please. How to handle a Stonewaller. Number 1, ask his or her opinion before expressing your own in person or by email. Get how they feel about it. Let them talk. 2, listen with understanding. 3, validate his or her thoughts so they feel listened to and understood and that you're not steamrolling them. Number 4, address his or her concerns. Number 5, express your thoughts as dreams that you have or wishes for the future, not as demands. Very important. And then 6, end the conversation early to allow for the seeds of your dreams to be planted. In other words, when you talk to your Stonewaller, don't give them demands, just plant the seeds of what you would perhaps like in the future. All right, let's go to some questions. Daniela from Seattle, my husband loves to discuss everything. I feel that if I discuss an issue with him, he will win. Aha! So this is one of the fears of a Stonewaller. As I watch your show, I see that I would be called a Stonewaller. I'm afraid that he won't understand my side of the story if I talk to him. So I have gotten into the habit of walking away or telling him that we can't talk about it now. I just don't feel I can trust him to discuss things with him. I just don't think I can do it.
You can do it. You can do it. Yay! You can do it!
Daniela, I am your cheerleader here to tell you that you can do it. I will be posting on my website just what I've been talking about to refresh your mind. And I recommend that you have your husband watch this episode of Stonewalling so that he will understand where you come from, that he will have understanding of why you're afraid to talk about something. And then you can discuss that and discuss how you better can communicate with each other. I'm your cheerleader. You can do it. The next one, Jackson from San Francisco. I'm a car mechanic with a high school education and my wife is an English high school teacher. She is verbal and could have been a lawyer. I get tongue-tied and can't think fast enough to get in my arguments. Then I yell at her and everything erupts. I don't want to stonewall, so what should I do?
Time out!
Remember to take a time out. Just say to your wife, let me think about this for a little bit, and then write your thoughts down so it gives you time not to get angry, prepare, then go back and talk with her about it. Also, watch this episode with her on stonewalling. Number 3, Kathy from Los Angeles. My husband is a stonewaller. After being married for 5 years, I realized that I was either going to have to get a divorce or figure out what we could do. I realized that I needed to make him feel safe, so I started to email him. I would start out the conversation with, "Hey babe, what do you think about this idea? I was just wondering." It worked like a charm. So I just wanted to say that stonewallers can become great partners.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
Congratulations, Kathy. You figured it out all by yourself. What a success. All right, number 4. Janice from Lexington, Kentucky. I really don't know what to do. I don't think we are stonewallers, but we definitely are both controllers. I feel that I'm right and he feels that he is right. Usually we get stuck because he remembers situations differently than I do. So it goes like this. He starts out saying what I did and I interrupt and try to set him straight on the details, and then we argue over what really happened and never get to solutions. What should I do?
Shh. It's very simple. Your ego is in the way of the resolution.
You know, details don't matter. Just leave your ego in the bathroom. And when you talk to your husband, it doesn't matter if he is positive that you wore a green dress to dinner and you say, "No, I wore a blue dress." Who cares? Let's get to the root of what the situation was, which is he wants to talk about the problem of smacking lips. So let's not get sidetracked. Don't worry about who's right and who's wrong. Leave your ego in the bathroom. Last question of the day, Alberta from Portland, Oregon. I have lived with a man for 5 years. We don't have any children. I want to have children, but I want to get married first. He refuses to get married to me. I guess he stonewalls me. If I ask for a discussion about getting married, he says, "I'm not talking about it," and he walks away. Or he will say, "The matter is closed. What should I do?" This is what you should do, my dear. 1, move out from him right away. 2, stop giving him the benefits of marriage. Don't do his laundry, don't do his cooking, don't have sex with him. 3, if he really loves you, he will propose. And if he doesn't, then this is what I say.
Honey, but I'd head for the hills. Head for the hills.
Dump him and find a man who truly loves you enough to marry you and have children with you. Now we're going to talk about controlling. It is very similar to stonewalling. Let's take a look at Rika Miller and Spencer Mickelson and see an episode with them demonstrating controlling behavior.
Great news. I found a boy to mow the lawn once a week for $10 an hour.
$10 an hour? That's kind of steep. I bet we could have found somebody for 8. Who is it?
Oh, it's Kyle, down the street.
Nah, that kid's a hoodlum.
Oh, come on. He is not. He just wears the popular clothes.
No, you know what? I'm just gonna hire my friend Tom. We can pay him like $7 or $8 an hour. We'll have him do it every other week. It'll be fine. He's out of work, I'll help him out.
Well, but I already gave the job to Kyle, and I promised him it could be a summer job.
Well then, ungive it to him and unpromise it to him. I'm gonna hire Tom, because he's somebody I know, and I want to pay him less.
Why don't you ever like my ideas?
Just because I have better ones, it's not that big of a deal.
It makes me feel bad.
Well then come up with a better idea.
Controlling behavior is a little different from stonewalling in that the controller will talk about something but insists on having the outcome be according to his or her own way. In this case, Spencer won't hear about Rika's solution to the lawn mowing problem. He finds fault with the one that she is thinking of hiring, the young boy, and instead he already has his own ideas of what he wants to have done. He's not going to talk about it or discuss it of what would be the best situation at all. I call these people little Hitlers. They just want to control, and they will talk you to death, but in the end, it better be done their way or it's the highway for you and tough. So let's take a look at the right way that Rika and Spencer discuss the lawn mowing situation without controlling.
So we need to get the lawn mowed. And I was wondering if you had any idea of who you'd want to do it.
Yes, I thought about Kyle down the street.
The kid that wears his pants so low you can see his undies.
Yeah, that one.
I don't know if I'm comfortable with him.
Okay, who did you have in mind?
I was thinking about Tom, my buddy that just lost his job. I know it would help him out a little bit to have some money.
Yeah, sure, I'm fine with that. Let's call Tom.
Okay, so I'll call Tom, and then if Tom doesn't want to do it, maybe we could talk to Kyle.
Sure.
How much are you thinking of paying him?
Oh, 10 an hour?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would help our budget out if we did like 7 or 8.
Okay,
A few dollars counts.
Sure.
Yeah. And then I guess if Tom doesn't want it, Kyle can get himself a new pair of pants that fit.
Yeah, well, we'll see. It's kind of in style to not. But...
Low ride.
Yeah, that's great. Let's do it.
Awesome.
Okay.
Isn't it wonderful when two people can discuss a problem that they have and look at it with a solution in mind, a solution that they both like? It was terrific how Rika and Spencer talked to each other, each about their own ideas. And Spencer talked about the friend who was out of work and what they could offer him, but if that didn't work out, hey, they could hire the young boy that Rika had in mind. And then they entered it with great humor. Humor of, I hope that his pants don't fall down when he mows the lawn, or humor like, hope he can afford to buy a new pair of pants. So that humor goes a long way. It was a great illustration of how to handle a problem, which is being open and not controlling, but working together to find a solution to the problem. So controllers, listen up. There is an antidote to the controlling problem. When my husband and I were first married, we took a 5-week honeymoon throughout Europe. It was wonderful. Well, because I had spent a year and a half living in France and spoke French really well at the time, when we were in France, I considered myself the boss without talking about it. And so one day we got in an argument in this large store called Carrefour. And we decided then and there, we better decide who was the boss in certain situations and the other would just follow. This is always a great case. So for example, maybe the wife decides that she's the boss of the kitchen, or if the husband happens to be a chef and love to cook, maybe he's the boss of the kitchen. So that there's always one to defer to when it comes to major decisions. However, you can always talk about it at the same time, just like Rika and Spencer did, which was heavenly. But remember, the antidote to controlling behavior is 1, listening to your mate, their ideas, sometimes in certain situations deciding, well, who's in charge, and then just follow. And then thirdly, allow your partner to have their own personality. So for example, my friend's mother was not allowed to go to her mother's funeral. The father wouldn't even think of it, wouldn't let her go to her mother's very own funeral. Isn't that tragic? And it was something that she needed to do for her. So think about the needs of your mate and allow them to have what they need for them in their life. And so, let's avoid being stonewallers. Let's avoid being controllers. Don't fall into the trap. And I'll join you next week for another episode of Relationship Talk with Laura. Make it a good week.